not talking about willy-nilly movement of people who are unvaccinated around the country. We're not talking about plane loads of COVID going from one state to the next. That's a nonsense. That's not what is under contemplation.
So there'll be different
And I don't
cases,
think any Premier thinks that's the case. We're going to have some states that go into 70 and 80% with low levels of cases. Good. And what the Doherty modelling shows is that for those states, the restrictions that are needed once you go into 70 and 80% are much, much less than what needs to be in place in cases like New South Wales and in Victoria, where the case node, and arguably in ACT, but their case numbers are becoming more under control. In those two states, in New South Wales and Victoria, when you go into 70 and 80%, well, obviously they won't have the same level of ease restrictions that you'd see in Western Australia or Queensland. So I've accepted, and we all know, we all understand, every state is coming from a different place. But this is where we need to end up, Kieran. To enable Australians to travel again overseas, vaccinated Australians, for vaccinated Australians to come to Australia, for people to be able to move around, then home quarantine needs to work. And the QR code readers that the states have, they need to work to be able to show whether someone has been vaccinated or not. Now, we're working with the states and territories to enable that. In New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia, they have very good systems that can accommodate that.
Is that just for travel, or are you thinking for sporting events, restaurants,
all of the
across the
above?
board?
Because, as you know, any venue, any pub, any cafe, any restaurant, any shop has every right under Australia's property laws to be able to deny entry to people who are unvaccinated.
Like a vaccine passport.
Well, they have that right to be able to deny that. And so the QR code reader can be used as a way of so it's easy for people. You just go in like you normally do right now, and it will show whether you're vaccinated or not. Now, for premises that are allowing unvaccinated people in, it also helps us because when they log in and we know they are unvaccinated, they're the first people we're going to call for their safety. So these QR code readers that tell people whether you're vaccinated or not are actually helping those who are unvaccinated as well, where they're allowed to go to places.
Do you want to see these sort of certificates, though, effectively?
Well, there is.
They're passports,
well, that's not how I refer to them. What I refer to them is people have certificates of vaccination. I have one. We all have them. Of course, we have them for many other things as well. And you're going to need them for international travel as well. But for international travel to work, we need home quarantine done. And I'm very encouraged by what we're seeing in South Australia and the technology trial that's underway there. New South Wales going down the same path. In Western Australia as well, they've been working with an app for some of their domestic-based home quarantine, which has been quite effective. Home quarantine is where we go next. And the length of that quarantine also is what we're looking at. Now, I'll be following up last Friday's meeting with the premiers, writing them, looking to get some timetables about their introduction of home quarantine. Also following up this issue of the integration of our technology that can enable fully vaccinated theatres, fully vaccinated events. A blues fest, which is fully vaccinated. So these events, people can get back on stage, restaurants can get back and open their doors to their patrons and be able to operate under much less restrictions. But those two things have to be enabled by the integration of that technology on the QR code reader app that people have at a state level. And secondly, for people to be able to leave the country if they're vaccinated and return, to lift the caps on airports. For people returning back from overseas, home quarantine needs to be at scale and needs to be tested and ready, and that's what's happening now, and that's what I'll continue to push to open the country up because that's what enables the national plan. I'm focused on the things that are going to enable the implementation of that national plan, and home quarantine does the job.